Welcome to That's So Reesa. Today is an updated video of thimbles, their types, and uses. A lot has happened since I made the original video 6 years ago. The biggest change being a new name for my business as I hone in on my branding, and I'm finally able to carve out time to make more videos. If you're wondering why you need a thimble and how to use it, you've come to the right place. First, let me explain to you what a thimble is. Think of a thimble as a piece of armor used to protect your middle finger from looking like you smacked it on a cactus. This is a hand sewing needle. The small opening is called an eye. The other end is the sharp bit used to poke a hole through the fabric. The small hole that you make by the sharp end makes a space for the thread to follow through. The end with the eye may not be as sharp as the tip, but it's definitely not padded. A thimble is placed onto the middle finger of your sewing hand to help you push the needle through the fabric easily. Without using a thimble, you will develop small puncture wounds that will lead to scarring. Due to the location, I will spare you close-ups of my old wounds from before I used a thimble. Now that we have a basic overview of a thimble's function, I want to review several types of thimbles that I have tried out. Although I know there are many options on the market, I feel that the thimbles I'm going to show you cover the basic styles and functions out there. The first 4 thimbles I will review are primarily for basic sewing stitches. This first thimble belonged to my grandma who taught me how to sew. Thanks to the game Monopoly, this is basically the shape people think of when they hear someone talk about a thimble. The one and only advantage I have found to this thimble is that technically it protects your finger from being poked by the needle. The main disadvantages that I have found are that it doesn't mold the shape of the finger, and it's difficult to find a good size that won't slip off and leave my fingertip looking squared off at the top. Another disadvantage is that even with the shortest nails, my nail bed would ache after using it because the pressure is actually centered on top of my fingernail. Luckily, thanks to technology and ingenuity, there are several better options available to us now. This is the leather thimble that's made by Clover. The best way to describe how this feels when I put it on is that it feels like my fingers wrapped up in a soft hug. It's by far the most comfortable thimble that I've found. While I've come across other thimbles that are made of leather, I prefer this one because it has a small metal coin inserted into the tip for better protection. The main disadvantage of this thimble is that the metal piece is quite small, which limits its protective ability. This metal thimble is one of my favorites. It fits comfortably onto the finger. The top edge is extended to help prevent the needle from slipping underneath your nail, which I can assure you is something I don't care to relive. This type of thimble has metal bands that wrap around the back of the finger. They allow us to adjust and fit a wide variety of finger shapes and sizes. It does come in small, medium, and large. I purchased the medium and adjusted it to fit my finger, which is a little bit misshapen from years of writing. This thimble also breathes, meaning it doesn't make your finger sweat. The one and only disadvantage that I have found with this thimble is that the dimples, I'm going to call them, to support the back of the needle are really not as deep as I would prefer. Just 1 millimeter deeper, and I think that this would be an amazing thimble to speed up hand sewing and prevent the needle from slipping. There are a few thimble types that I don't recommend. This long leather and knit thimble is way too long and limits mobility. If I want the advantages of leather, just stick with the Clover type that I've already shown you. Another type of thimble is a sticky dot that adheres to your middle finger. While this does allow you to adjust where the eye of the needle is going to press against your finger, I found that the needle slips way too often for my liking. I also don't like that they're not reusable. Thus ends our discussion on basic hand sewing thimbles. Let's move on to quilting thimbles. The main difference between basic hand sewing and quilting thimbles is that for quilting, the thimble needs to provide more control of the eye of the needle so that the quilter can pivot through thick layers of fabric and batting. This first quilting thimble looks pretty similar to my grandma's thimble, except it has deeper ridges and a lip around the top edge. The lip of this thimble wasn't tall enough to prevent slipping while I was hand quilting. Another issue I have with this thimble is that it is difficult to find the right size. I ended up with a weird circular blister around where the thimble came in contact with my skin. The final issue I had was that having the side channels instead of circular dimples led to the needle slipping. A lot. The issues with this thimble led me to purchase this yellow one. It has a similar ridge around the top edge. There are several side dimples to put the back of the needle against. I like that it was easier to find a size match, but unfortunately, the silicone on this didn't breathe at all. Also, I discovered that the top felt unstable with the rocking motion of hand quilting, which led to more slipped needles. Now for the pièce de résistance. This green thimble was made for hand quilting, but I have actually ended up using it for both applications and loving it. It molds to my finger better than any thimble I've tried. It's very ergonomic. Despite being made of a harder silicone, it breathes really well. I love that the holes are deep enough to control the end of the needle in every setting. It is also really easy to size. Because I'm always looking for improvements that can be made, I would love it if Dritz added just a few more holes onto the side. If you have long nails, this may not work as well for you as the metal thimble for the basic hand sewing, just an FYI. I want to close out this video by telling you about a companion piece to the thimble. This finger grip is placed on the index finger to make it easier to pull the needle out of the fabric after the thimble has been pushed through it. Some seamstresses also use a grip on their thumb. There are a variety of options and sizes available. I don't do any hand sewing without one. There are a couple of disadvantages to the grippers. Over time, they will break down. This is due to the metal sliding against them. They usually last me several projects, and I don't mind the issue of them falling apart over time because they save my hands so much wear and tear. Better that this gets shredded than my cute hands. The only other disadvantage is that your finger can get sweaty over time. Some kind of chalk or powder could help with this. Luckily, these are pretty inexpensive and easy to replace. To start, I recommend a pack that has a variety of sizes that you can test out. Some people like to use finger grips that look like this. I've tried to make these work, but they don't work in the same way as the ones meant specifically for sewing. They aren't as tacky, and my fingers sweat a lot more in them. Sorry if that's too much information. To sum up, for basic hand sewing, I recommend either the Clover leather thimble, the metal thimble by Dritz, and then of course, for all types of sewing, I recommend the ergonomic thimble, the green one from Dritz. And again, make sure you always have a finger grip. The final item that I wanted to discuss is finding the right size of thimble for your finger. Most manufacturers will have a guide for size like the one pictured here. If your finger doesn't fit easily into the hole, then it's going to be too small for you. If your finger just goes right through and doesn't touch any of the sides for the hole, then the thimble will be too large. You know you found the right thimble for yourself with style and size when the thimble feels like it's part of your hand. I hope this video has been helpful. Although it's not sponsored, I have included the links to the products that I have recommended. If there are different types of thimbles that you've tried and liked, please leave a comment and description. I'd be happy to try out a greater variety. Please consider liking this video and subscribing. Subscribing will help me be able to go live and provide even more educational videos. Finally, if you have any sewing questions or are stumped on a project, please leave a comment and I'd be happy to help you fix it. Happy sewing!